All right, let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to the Write Smarter with AI webinar. My name is Paul Woods. Thank you so much for joining me today, live either via the webinar itself or on the replay on YouTube. Appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your day to pick up some of the lessons that I've learned working with AI as a leader and also working with other leaders in terms of how they improve their written communication using generative AI tools like Copilot, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, etc. Today, we're going to talk about the top 10 mistakes that leaders make when using generative AI to write and look at ways that we can resolve those issues or fix those issues as well. So you'll walk away with a toolkit of ways that you can improve the way that you're using AI in your general writing at work as well. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. There's no point mucking around. We don't have much time. So let's go a bit deeper into the reasons why, just to start with, to set the scene. Look, for me as a leader, writing is absolutely one of the key tools that you have in your toolkit to effectively lead in your organization, to influence others, to help people make and guide people to make decisions that you need them to make. Writing is a way that you project your leadership skills and your leadership qualities. So being able to write really well is a really important part of any leader's day-to-day work. But in parallel, we've got AI absolutely changing the game when it comes to the cost, speed, and scale of written communication. And you'll know this from your early experiments with ChatGPT, with Copilot, etc., where it's very easy to create a lot of content. And we see this, particularly, you might have noticed this on places like LinkedIn or other places that you see a lot of written communication, the vast volume of content that's being created by leaders. And sometimes it feels a bit beige or a bit average or a bit meh. Something doesn't quite feel right about it. So we see this really interesting dynamic happening where leaders are using generative AI tools to produce great content, or so they think is great content, but the reality is the outcome of what they're producing is just more volume and not necessarily more influence or more outcomes that they need to drive as a leader. And we're in this really great moment in time where we're still very early in the generative AI era. ChatGPT only really came out a few years ago. We've got plenty more time to run on this. So as a leader today, you have a great opportunity to improve your skills, to start applying AI in really interesting ways to kind of step up and step out from the crowd and kind of differentiate yourself as a leader through your written communication. So today is all about that. We're going to look at those top 10 mistakes. And in fact, there is an 11th mistake that I've added in as a bonus. So make sure you stay right to the end to capture that 11th mistake as well. So let's get straight into it. The first mistake, starting with AI instead of on the message, instead of the message. And we see this all the time when you might be going to write a bit of communication. Instead of thinking about what you need to write first and who you're writing it for, you just go straight to the AI tool and hope for the best. So the mistake here really is jumping into your favorite AI tool, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot or whatever, without clear intent of what you're trying to communicate or what decision you want people to make based off your communication, what action you want them to take off the basis of your communication. And the problem this creates is you get some quick output from ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever really quickly. So you can kind of say, yes, I've done the communication, I've made the communication, I've written the communication, but you haven't really communicated anything in that process. You've got vague output that just wastes your reader's time as well as your time realistically at the end of the day. So the quick fix for this first mistake is really to think about your message, think about your audience, think about the tone of what you need to communicate and the desired outcome of what you want to get to before prompting your AI tool. Don't just go straight to the AI tool, think about it first. Now, there's a really interesting technique you can use to help you structure this if you want to work with AI to help you with this. It's basically this idea of partnering with AI. So don't think of AI just as a tool that you farm jobs off to, but you can actually really use it as a thinking partner to help you kind of structure what you're thinking about. Now, in this case here, you might work with ChatGPT, for example, and say, I need to deliver a message to my executive board or the senior leadership team of our organization. And these are the kinds of things that they're concerned about at the moment. And this is the kind of outcome that I want to get to. What are the things that I'm missing? What are the things that I need to think about in terms of my intentions for this communication first before I actually start writing it? Now you can work one-on-one with ChatGPT to do that. Let's use that as an example right now. If I just switch over to my screen here, switch to the ChatGPT window, there we go. So I'm basically going to work with ChatGPT to work through that particular scenario. In this case, I am about to prepare a report for the senior leadership team. Top of mind for them at the moment is our capital works budget and pressure from the competitive environment. How should I start thinking about preparing this report? So you can kind of interact with ChatGPT to kind of help you think about the different things you need to consider for this communication. So straight away, it's telling me, like, let's clarify the purpose. What is the decision or discussion this report should enable? Is it intended to inform, persuade, prioritize? And help me kind of understand what goals I could be having in my communication. Helps me understand the executive's priorities in terms of what I need to focus on. And then maybe gives me some ideas from some structure for a report and other bits and pieces like that. So this is a great way to kind of frame my thinking before I actually go and start preparing the specific written content that I want to work with. Now we can iterate with ChatGPT here backwards and forwards to kind of refine this a bit more and then actually turn that into some content as well if we wanted to. So it's a quick and easy way to kind of make that transition between the two there. But a really easy way to kind of help frame that thinking before you go straight into the AI conversation itself. All right, let's move on to the next mistake. Mistake number 2, using vague or jargon-heavy prompts. Now, I'm very much of the camp where I think prompt engineering is complete overkill. I don't think you need to have very specific structures in terms of how you prepare your prompts to be able to work with your favorite generative AI tool. However, there are some simple mistakes that people make that kind of result in output that isn't quite right, isn't quite what they're expecting. But ultimately, it comes down to either very vague prompts, which don't really articulate exactly what you want, don't have any precision in them, or they're very jargon heavy and they have a lot of assumed knowledge that if someone in your industry might completely understand, but if the AI tool that you're working with doesn't have that context in terms of those specific things, the jargon can get in the way of the actual outcome you're trying to get to. So the mistake here really is it's underspecified or unclear instructions to the generative AI tool that you're using. The clearer your instructions, the more specific or the more precise your instructions, the closer you're going to get to the output that you're looking for. Now, if you don't do that, the outcome that you get to, the problem is you get very generic or even unusable AI content. And we see plenty of generic AI generated content around. I'm sure you're familiar enough now with it to recognize it and see it, overly verbose with not much meaning or much substance to it, or structured in a way that just doesn't make sense. So this problem is becoming more and more prevalent as more and more people are starting to use these tools. So a great way to stand out from the crowd is if you fix this problem yourself. Now the fix to it is being very precise on things like the output format you want generative AI to produce for you. So if you want it to produce some content in a table, tell it you want it in a table. If you want it in a narrative or a story that kind of weaves together your company values and your mission and your purpose, then ask the tool to do that for you. You can be very clear in terms of how you want that format, both in the stylistic side of things, but also the structural look and feel of it as well. Being really clear about the purpose of your communication and the outcome that you're trying to drive or the decision that you're trying to make based off the communication that you're preparing with AI is also really, really important. And we'll talk about it a little bit later in one of the other mistakes, but knowing your audience and being really clear about the audience for your particular piece of communication equally is really important as well. Now, I said before, I'm not really a fan of prompt engineering. I think it's completely overkill. My favorite way to work through this in a consistent, kind of repeatable way is to embrace a way of prompting called meta prompting. And it's basically where you work with your favorite AI tool to help you create the perfect prompt for the content that you're trying to produce. Now, if I switch across again to the ChatGPT window, I can show you. If I just open up a new one sec. Where are we? Here we go. I'll create a new one, switch across so you can see it. In this case here, let's create a meta prompt for a communication that we're going to have with our CFO. And or maybe our capital works budget team, for example. Can you work with me to create a great prompt? That's kind of the opening I have for any meta prompt that I work with, but kind of you don't need to be that verbose necessarily. It just gets me into my own mindset of what I'm going to ask for and how I'm going to interact with ChatGPT. Can you work with me to create a great prompt to prepare some communication with our CFO and capital works budget team? I need to convince them that we need to invest in the new warehouse facility. Can you help? What do you think? Warehouse facility. They are concerned about budget pressures. What prompt could I use to write a executive briefing note for them? So again, it's more like a brain dump from me in terms of the kind of intent of what I'm trying to do, and a little bit about the audience, a little bit like, is it a really well structured prompt? Absolutely not, not at all. But it basically sets up for the generative AI tool to then craft a really great prompt for me. So if I just hit execute or enter on that one, you'll see that it's starting to shape the prompt for me. As you can see here is an executive, create an effective executive briefing to persuade a CFO and capital works team. The prompt needs to be business case focused, not emotional. That makes sense. Address budget constraints head on, not avoid them. Yeah, go straight to the point and kind of break through those challenges. Highlight any risks of inaction or return on investment, and speak in their language. So CapEx, ROI, efficiency, risk elimination. That kind of all makes sense. So here is the prompt that it's suggested for me. And again, going back to the things that we're looking for here in terms of less vague language, less jargon, and being very precise and specific of what we're looking for. So we can see that it said, act as a senior business leader preparing a persuasive executive briefing for CFO and capital works budget team. Purpose of the briefing is to advocate for capital investment, new warehouse facility, frame the case in business first language, clearly articulating strategic rationale, financial implications, so on and so forth. Now you can see there, that's a very well structured prompt. I didn't need to engineer that prompt in any way. I didn't need to remember any prompting frameworks or anything like that. I just needed to ask ChatGPT in this case to help me create a great prompt for this particular thing. This is my secret sauce, my shortcut to basically any great output that I produce with generative AI is this kind of meta prompting approach. And obviously you can edit this and you can tweak this as you go. No, don't take it on face value what comes out. There's obviously things and nuance that it may not have picked up on that you want to add into the particular prompt. But this is a great way to get started. It gets you to 90% of the way there of a fantastic prompt that will help you deliver an amazing outcome as well. So all you need to do, copy and paste that into your chat window, and off you go, which is pretty cool. And that solves that problem for us as well. So instead of maybe my first prompt was a bit vague, but again, using that meta prompting approach definitely helped overcome this vague and jargon heavy prompt mistake that we see. Mistake number 3, we just talked about this, blindly accepting first drafts. This is lethal for leaders, if I use a phrase like that. AI has an amazing ability to create content for us, but if we blindly trust what AI generates, the AI is not going to be the one that deals with the consequences. It's you as a leader that's going to have to deal with the consequences of blindly accepting that first draft that has lots of, maybe has errors in it or hallucinations in it and things like that as well. So the mistake here is just blindly copying raw AI output without any kind of a review before you put it into practice and put your name on it, essentially. Now, the problem here, apart from potentially looking like an absolute idiot and losing credibility in your organization because of mistakes that you should have clearly picked up along the way, there's an opportunity here that you lose the tone of voice that you're trying to communicate. You lose nuance in the message you're trying to deliver, remembering that a lot of leadership communication is not black and white. There's shades of gray that we need to work through. Or you may completely miss the key message that you're trying to deliver as part of that communication as well. So the key takeaway here is to think about AI as a junior team member producing the work for you. You're not outsourcing your writing to AI. It's just a team member that you work with, and you need to work with them to edit, adapt, and refine that content as you go. I think that's the key lesson. If there's one lesson to take away from all this is don't blindly accept first drafts. The other 9 are important, but this one's probably the most important one. You have the opportunity to stop things in their tracks and stop mistakes or stop issues in their tracks before they go out. If you just have this in your writing workflow, just make sure you have that review process in there as well. Mistake number 4 is assuming that AI understands your audience. Now, it's very easy for us because it's just a magical machine that you can type into and it produces content immediately. It's very easy for us to assume that AI figures this out and tails it along the way. But the reality is AI knows nothing about your audience. And even vague prompts that say, write this for a CFO, every CFO is different. And what we need to be able to do is articulate very clearly what our audience really needs to understand to make a decision. If we don't do that, and we're not including the audience details in our prompts, the content just won't connect with the stakeholders that you're trying to influence. Again, as a leader, you want to be able to make sure that you're creating that connection and really hitting the point home in terms of the key things that your stakeholders care about. So we need to, the way to fix this is we need to specify our audience. We need to set the context and think about any sensitivities that might be important in this particular case. Now, if you think about the examples we've been working through, this idea of writing for a CFO and a capital works budget team, I could have a prompt that says, write this for a CFO audience. And that will maybe hit the mark, but I'm not quite sure it's going to hit the mark with 3 of our key stakeholders on the capital works team that have very different points of view or areas of interest in the particular capital works project. So the more that you can tell the AI tool in your prompting that says, hey, this communication has been written for 4 different people. The CFO is very cost conscious and very focused on the capital works budget and the ratios between the capital expenditure that we're doing within the organization. Our risk panel member is actually really focused more on the health and safety aspects here, and if it opens up to any legal consequences as well. So being a little bit more specific in terms of what it is that the audience is interested in, but then also taking it another step further and thinking from an emotional intelligence point of view, what is it they really care about? What are the things that drive them personally that's going to really help you create a great bit of content that will really connect with that individual? Now, you can add this all into your prompt. You can use that strategy we used earlier in terms of meta prompting to help kind of refine this, or kind of iterating through this with the ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude or Grok or whichever tool you're using to do that. But the more information you can put in about your audience, the closer the content that's produced is going to relate and connect to the audience that you're trying to engage with as well, which is really important to make sure that you don't assume AI understands your audience. You need to tell AI who your audience really is. Mistake number 5 is using the wrong tone for the situation. Now, in Australia, where I am, and probably where most of the audience is for this webinar, this can be an issue. It's definitely an issue across geographic borders and geographic boundaries we need to consider. The reason is that if you're using ChatGPT or Copilot straight out of the box, chances are it's going to default to what you could describe as a generic US-based or Western-based business tone. Now, you might get away with that depending on the organization that you're working in, but what you want to make sure you're doing is tailoring the content that you're producing with tools like ChatGPT to your particular business context that you're operating in. Now, in Australia, that might mean we want to change it to Australian English and Australian localization from a language point of view versus American English. So making sure there's no Zs appearing in words and more Ss appearing in words as an example. Or it could be the style of the writing, how things are phrased, the ways that things are phrased in an executive environment in the United States might be different from how we'd approach it in Australia, which might be different from how you approach it in Europe in terms of how you engage with different stakeholders and different parties in the way that you write in your communication as well. Now, is this a huge mistake? Well, I think the default spelling one is probably the most obvious one that I see, and then the tone of voice thing is probably the next most obvious one that I see. But what it does is it reduces your influence to some extent as a leader, because it's basic things like that you just take for granted when you're communicating through your own written content, or through the way that you speak, or the way that you engage with people as well. So it does impact the way that people perceive your leadership competence, simply because it's an extension of who you are. So the way to fix this is to obviously put into your prompt signals for tone or for language that you want to use to make sure that the message gets across exactly how you want it to be. Now, this could get really boring very quickly if you had to do this for every single prompt that you did and every bit of content that you wanted to work with. But the good thing is in tools like ChatGPT and Copilot and others, we have this concept of a custom instruction or a system prompt in some cases, I might call it. And basically what this allows you to do is for every prompt that you create, it automatically adds this prompt in the background, so you don't have to keep adding to it over time. Now, if I show you how I've got mine set up in ChatGPT, I'm going to switch back to that window that we were at before. Now, if I go up to my settings here in the top right-hand corner, if I go to customize ChatGPT, you can see here that there's a lot of customizations here that I've added. Now, You can use that meta prompting technique we used earlier to create this content here if you want to, or you can just brain dump it straight in. I don't think it's going to matter too much. But here I can say, what should ChatGPT call you? Well, Paul, that's my name, so it should be Paul. But this is the interesting bit. What traits should ChatGPT have? And I've just added in some content here to help frame how I want the output to be produced every time that I create a new chat window or chat prompt, new prompt with ChatGPT. And I've got similar in Copilot as well for Microsoft 365. So I wanted to always respond in Australian English. So that's obviously, I'm an Australian, my audience is Australian, I want it to be in Australian English. This includes spelling, so and I've given some examples here, so organisation with an S, colour with a U, label with a U, and grammar convention is typical of Australian usage. Now, do you need to put in the examples here? Can you just rely on Australian English? You probably could. I'm just trying to reduce the amount of potential errors that may come up, because remembering that generative AI is not deterministic. It's not going to do exactly as you say every single time, but the more color you can give to these custom instructions, the more examples you can give, the more likely you're going to get the outcome that you want to get to. So you can see there, I've said additionally, you must consistently prefer Australian lexical choices over American or British alternatives where applicable. So this is kind of the word usage that you might use. So for example, use ute instead of truck, use petrol station instead of gas station, footpath instead of sidewalk. So again, trying to break it down, not just from an English spelling point of view, Australian English spelling point of view, but a lexical, like how we use the language point of view as well. Refer to public holidays instead of national holidays or bank holidays, things like that. You can go even further, like here I've gone, use local terms like arvo, bottle-o, servo for an Australian audience. And then for professional or executive audiences, maintain a professional tone, but adapt language to feel authentically Australian. Avoid overuse of slang unless it enhances relatability, etc., etc. So you can see I've added quite a colourful custom prompt here, a custom instruction for ChatGPT, and this kind of sits in the background of every single prompt that I do. So I can be confident that the output that ChatGPT is producing is kind of really aligned with where I needed to be in terms of spelling, language use, tone, etc., etc. And you can do that as well just by going into the settings and making that change yourself. It's pretty easy to do. I recommend you go in there right now if you haven't done it yet. At least just say use Australian English if you're an Australian audience, or use British English if you're in the UK, or whichever cultural localization that you want to make to the output that ChatGPT is making. It makes a huge difference in terms of saving you time having to fix up stuff when you go through that review process down the track as well. Okay, so let's get back into the slides. Next mistake we have is overusing or over-relying on AI. Now, this is one that I really grapple with, because I feel I kind of go in waves in terms of my use of AI. Sometimes I use it all the time, and then I get to a point where I'm like, I just feel like I'm not thinking anymore. I'm just blindly accepting what's coming out, and I'm kind of a passenger in the process. Then other times I get stuck because I'm going the exact opposite way, and I'm thinking, and I might have writer's block, or I might trying to get through a particular challenging problem I'm trying to deal with. So we've got to try and find this nice equilibrium of, we're not overusing or over-relying on AI, but we're still getting the advantages of AI as well. And the mistake here is if you start outsourcing your critical thinking to AI, then you basically divorcing yourself from the entire process. And as a leader, you just can't do that, particularly if you're writing content. So if you're producing content divorced from the thinking process, then someone comes up to you and asks you a question about that, and you haven't really been connected to the thinking along the way. It's very difficult for you to then come and respond in a way that is meaningful or substantial or even closely connected to the content that AI produced for you. So you need to be involved in this process all the time. You need to be connected to it. So we don't want to outsource our critical thinking to AI, because it's ultimately going to diminish our own voice as a leader, and we don't want to do that. So how do we do that? The kind of the middle ground that I've found is that if we say we're going to use AI to focus our use of AI on structure and how we structure content, how we structure arguments, how we think about our audience, how we structure how we reframe or repurpose content, that kind of thing. But we still make sure we include our own insight in that process as well. So it's our ideas, it's our brain dump of concepts that we might have. We're using AI to help refine and reframe that stuff. That's kind of the good equilibrium kind of baseline that I think about. Yes, there are times you can use AI to help you with refining those insights and generating those insights. I'm not saying you just completely ignore the opportunity with AI there, because I think it's significant, particularly with tools like deep research that can do amazing desk research for you in a matter of 15 minutes. It would take days or weeks previously. So I'm not saying ignore that stuff, but when it's the day-to-day writing side of things, maybe use AI for the structural side of it and maybe some ideas as opposed to the absolute complete process as well. Mistake number 7 is failing to review for accuracy or fit. We all know that generative AI tools can hallucinate, but if we're really honest with ourselves, human beings hallucinate as well. We misremember things, we have short-term memories, we might forget what's going on. But the interesting thing with AI is that no one's going to blame AI for the mistake if it's got your name on it. It's always going to be you that's blamed for the mistake if you've put your name on some AI-generated content. So as a leader, it's really important that we make sure we get this right and make sure we do a review, not just for silly mistakes, but for factual accuracy and making sure that any statements that we're making, we can back them up with evidence. So the mistake here is skipping that final review. The problem, the risk of factual errors entering into your work, which people could make decisions based off, or it could be misaligned with policy that you have in your organization, or it could be, in some cases, completely making up sources that you might be relying on as evidence for statements or positions that you're making in your writing. So the fix here is just don't trust AI blindly. Trust your own judgment. You make sure you go through it. Maybe get a peer review of the content. Make sure that the words that are on the paper actually make sense and are not completely made up as well. Now, this is getting better, I must admit. When ChatGPT first came out and some of the earlier GPT models before that, the hallucination rates were a really big problem. It's getting better and better through usage and through things like the memory, the inbuilt memory that's built into tools these days. So it understands the context, understands the things you've shared with it in the past, and it uses that information, those memories, to help refine the content that it produces. But as a leader, again, if your name is on it, you don't want to blindly trust it. Make sure you've got that review process in there. And if you don't have the attention to detail to check those facts, work with someone to check those facts for you. An interesting thing you could try is use AI to check those facts. But again, you're kind of opening up to a bit of a Swiss cheese, maybe a few different holes in that process if you do it that way. A human intervention here is a great way to make sure you've got that accuracy there as well in the content that you're producing. Mistake number 8 is not adapting your outputs for the different channels that you have. We write through a lot of different communication channels. It's not just a report, it's not just an email, it could be a chat, it could be a PowerPoint presentation, it could be a memo, if people still use memos these days, I don't know. But there's lots of different ways that we put our words to paper when we're a leader. And we want to make sure that we want to reframe that content for the particular communication channel and the expectations that we have for that particular communication channel as well. So we don't want to reuse AI text across different formats. That is the mistake that we're making. So you might have produced some content for a report, then you've copied and pasted that content directly into an email. The problem here is it's just a poor fit for the channel or the audience that you're working with. And what we want to do is make sure we're repurposing our content to suit those particular channels. So email, chat, slides, etc. Now it's really easy to do this. Just take your paragraph or your bullet points or whatever it is, and just ask ChatGPT, hey, can you please rewrite this for an email to a business executive, or rewrite this for a chat conversation, or rewrite this for a PowerPoint slide. That's all you got to do. It's really simple prompting technique you can use, but it just helps you align the output for the particular audience that you're working with as well. Mistake number 9 is skipping the thinking step. That sounds pretty strange when you say it out loud, but it's just making sure that you are really thinking about your intent first. This kind of relates quite closely to mistake number 1, but it's slightly different in this case here. Just making sure that we're not just prompting before we think, and it's not just about the audience or the tone, but it's actually really what is our intent in the first place. We want to avoid shallow, misaligned output based on the decision that we're trying to convince someone to make, or the decision that we need to pursue through our organization. So the quick fix here is to capture your intent first. Could be a brain dump, could be bullet points, could be a voice note. You can just open up, ChatGPT's voice mode and just, share with it through voice exactly what you're trying to achieve, having a think about it, and then before you commit to the actual prompt that's going to be used to get that outcome, you get all that thinking out loud and kind of get it out in the open before you start doing any work on it as well. The mistake number 10 is not building a reusable system. Now, if you find some killer prompts that work really, really well, to help you get a great outcome. It could be a something that's something you do quite often. Maybe it's a repeatable report that you need to produce every month or something like that. Don't start from scratch every time. Actually build your repeatable system that you can work with. So the problem here is that remembering that generative AI is not deterministic. We've talked about this a few times. It's not like hard code or an algorithm that specifically will get the same output every single time. Your prompts are almost like art versus science. In reality, it's like how do you craft a great prompt that gets a great outcome? If you've got something that starts getting you a great outcome and you can improve on that prompt over time, then put it into a library. Put it into open up OneNote as your notebook or whatever notebook that you're using. Just take note of these prompts that got you a great outcome, and then work through the process of improving those over time as you iteratively work with them over time as well. The other thing you can do is create a swipe file, we call a swipe file. This comes from the advertising industry. It's basically copying great examples that you've seen around the place. So if you see a great example someone shared online, you see a great example here that you've used or a colleague has used, blatantly copy it and use it yourself and then improve on it from there as well. A great way to kind of make this reusable and you're not starting from scratch every single time that you work with generative AI. Now, onto the bonus mistake. Mistake number 11 is not committing to learning more about how you can work with AI to become a better business writer. And this basically leads me to something that I'd love to share with you today that I'm launching today, and that is my business writing with AI course that I've been building over the last couple of months. Some of you know that I'm working on a book at the moment on AI, which will be coming out shortly. But what this prompted for me was this idea of how do you build amazing AI skills without getting bored to death just doing straight AI learning content. So learning about AI is good for technical people that kind of want to dig into the technical side of things, but how can you learn how to develop confidence and capability with AI without having to dig into lots of that different detail? And the key light bulb moment for me is the way to do that is not by building AI skills, but it's by building a really important skill using AI. And that's the genesis for the business writing with AI course that I've put together. So if you've got this far in the webinar or the recording and you're interested in learning more about how you can become a really proficient, really effective executive communicator using generative AI to help you amplify your impact as a leader, I'd love to walk you through just quickly what the course looks like and the kind of things that you get in the course itself. So here is the inside of the business writing with AI course. We've got over 50 lessons here, 58 lessons to guide you through the process of becoming a far better, more confident communicator whilst learning those foundational AI skills as well. So obviously beyond the introductory content there in terms of how to use the course, we've got 7 modules that you can work through at your own pace to really level up and improve the way you write at work, at university, at school, wherever you are that you need to effectively communicate through your writing. So I'll give you an example of some of the content. Here's the first module, which is the Introduction to Human AI Collaborative Writing. The focus of this module is really around how do we engage with AI, work iteratively with AI to improve our thinking, improve our prompting, improving the way that we structure things that we do with our writing. We start with a pre-course self-assessment to see exactly where you are. We talk about some of the contextual things in terms of understanding how AI can act as your writing partner, some of the common mistakes in AI writing and how to avoid them. You've seen a few of them in the webinar today, but there's more in the course. How you think about your mindset when it comes to working with AI, how to pick the right AI writing tools, how to do simple crafting clear and effective prompts from a simple point of view. We talk about meta prompting we talked about earlier and how you iteratively work with AI. Pretty good introductory module to help you really level up your core understanding of how to work with generative AI generally. Then we get into the detail. So how do we work through our everyday efficiency when it comes to writing? So emails and routine writing that we have to do. So how do we efficiently draft emails with AI? How do we set our tone and personalization? How can we generate concise internal updates that focus on action-oriented outcomes for the people that we're communicating with? It could be a team update, it could be an internal report, that kind of thing. How do we do quick fact-checking accuracy? How do we polish routine communications to improve structure, to improve clarity, to improve persuasiveness, that kind of thing. And a few demos there in terms of how to use different AI tools that you might have available to you. So if you're using ChatGPT or Microsoft 365 Copilot, there's examples for both those tools in the course to help you work through it. But again, they basically apply to every tool that you're working with. The next module is all about crafting compelling proposals, reports, and business cases. So if you have to do heavy lifting writing in terms of persuasive proposals if you're a salesperson, or if you're responding to tender responses or RFQs or anything like that. This is a module that you'll absolutely get a lot of value out of. So we've got a lesson here around decoding requirements from requirements documents or tender response documents to enable you to extract the key things you need to focus on to hit the selection criteria for a particular sales opportunity that you might be working on. So how do you extract that from the documentation with AI? How do you then use that to structure a proposal that hits all those marks? How do you do the targeted content generation to fill the gaps in that structure, et cetera, et cetera? That's what this entire module is all about. We talk about collaborative AI editing and refinement. So how do you work with AI, but also with your peers to be able to craft really great, group-based writing? And how do you ensure compliance and confidentiality as well? Obviously, working with some more sensitive information you might be working with there. Next module is around high stakes writing, so board reports or strategic documents, documents that need to stand the test of time, and how we use AI to gather research and insights to be able to, have evidence-based, evidence-backed writing in these documents. How do we draft for executive audiences? So how do we make sure it's concise but meaningful and substantive and helps them make decisions that they need to make? How do you maintain your own leadership voice and make sure that it doesn't sound like bland, robotic content that a lot of generative AI content can start sounding like? And working through things like confidentiality and ethics when it comes to using sensitive information that you might be working with in board reports and strategic documents and that kind of thing. We have a module on responsible and ethical AI use. You can't talk about AI without responsible ethical AI use. The key thing here is around setting boundaries and making sure we're really clear about what the boundaries are, what is good practice and what is bad practice when it comes to writing with generative AI. We have a module on building your executive AI writing toolkit. So how do you build your own personal AI workflow? What are the steps and the structures you kind of set up for yourself to kind of work through the process of ideation, creation, structuring, refining, polishing, publishing along the way, and how you can use AI to do some pretty incredible things, including some productivity hacks for executives to help you just improve the way that you work, get some time back, get your lunch break back, get out of the office on time, or close the laptop lid on time if you're working from home. And then in the final module before the conclusion module is all about some advanced communication mastery. And this is really the 5% on the edges. It's going to make the biggest difference in terms of the way that you're perceived as a leader and the way that you write. So it's the foundations of persuasive business writing. How do you write in a more persuasive way? How do you structure your arguments for clarity and impact? How do you tell amazing executive stories through executive storytelling? The key things that will kind of set you apart as a leader from other leaders in your business as well. So that's the course itself. There's 58, I think, lessons in that course. In terms of what the content looks like, it's a blend of video content for a few of the lessons, text-based content, and exercises that you can work through. So here's an example of the email drafting lesson itself. You can see we've got a video here at the start. You can watch me delivering content in this very same studio in my home office where I've built this. You've got video content like that. It has screen sharing and other things in it. I've got lots of content here for you to work through in terms of why this is important, some of the scenarios you might be working through, how do you structure things really well, when to do it, when not to do it. And then every lesson has 3 exercises that you can try straight away with writing that you're doing for work yourself. So you might have to work on a report or an email, like perfect. Use these exercises as a way to get your work done, but also learn something at the same time and practice and build your confidence in business writing using AI to help you get there as well. So that's an example of the lessons. Most lessons will take you 5 to 10 minutes to work through, including those exercises. So you could get through this in course in probably a day or so if you wanted to, but you get 12 months access to be able to go through the content at your own pace if you want to. So you can learn over time and kind of build up your confidence as you go through those different modules. To learn more about it, go to paulwoods.ai/businesswriting. There should be a link below, either on YouTube or in the webinar, where you can see the course itself. It'll take you to this page where we've got a little bit of a video there to walk you through it in a bit more detail. Some content here in terms of why it's important, the transformation that you're going to go through. So from overly vague and passive content to clear, direct, or authoritative content. From wordy without adding value to concise and purposeful. From generic corporate speak to you really mastering your distinct leadership voice, using AI to help you get there. FAQs if you want to learn more about how it works and what you get and what you don't get, and what tools are included in it and all that other kind of stuff. But if I kind of call it out, there's 3 different options here. If you're interested in learning more and diving deep into becoming a far better business writer using AI, if you just want to try it out and learn the basics, those first 2 modules, so the human AI writing collaboration module and the everyday efficiency emails and report writing module, that's available for just $9. You get the first 2 modules instantly available, 12 months access, and you can basically try before you buy, understand all the basics, and walk away, being a more confident communicator. If you want to dive right in and do the complete course for $297, again in Australian dollars, so if you're in the US, take a third off that price. It's basically what the price will be. Again, available instantly, 12 months access. You get all 7 modules, all 58 lessons. It'll help you write better emails, high converting proposals, clearer internal reports, sharper business cases, more compelling strategic documents. You get a certificate of completion at the end, which is great. But what I've also included is a bonus AI-powered executive writing coach. So if you want ChatGPT to work with you to help you become a better communicator, I have built a really great prompt that you can just plug into ChatGPT or Copilot, and then you can interact with it in a way, and it's kind of structured the way that I've structured it. There's 6 different paths you can go down, where it can do simulated communication exercises. It can do reviews for you. You can analyze your writing and see how you're doing. Like, there's lots of different things it can help you do to improve your practice day to day. So not only do you get the content of the course, but you also get the AI-powered executive writing coach to help you level up and become an even better communicator whilst you're doing the content as well. Last but not least, if you want to work with me and we can work together one-on-one to help you really level up and become a great executive communicator using generative AI, you can get the course, you can get the ChatGPT based or AI based executive writing coach, but you can also get access to me for 90 days, where through Teams or WhatsApp, we can work on your particular challenges that you might face. In your business context, you might be working on an RFQ, you want to automate some of the content generation for it. You might be working on a requirements document, you want to structure in a different way. Whatever that particular work thing is that you're working on, you can have me in your back pocket to help you, guide you through the process of using generative AI to solve that particular problem. Now, we get 90 days access for that one-on-one support asynchronously. We also do a few coaching sessions where we connect synchronously via video call to kind of work through some of your learning goals, set up your learning, set up your writing processes and things like that to make sure that you can be absolutely as effective as you can as a business leader, improving the writing that you're doing, and you're leveraging generative AI that you have at work, be it ChatGPT Enterprise or Copilot from Microsoft 365 or Gemini. The tool doesn't matter. We'll work together to help you make the absolute most out of that as well. Now, I'm only taking on 5 people at a time for this one-on-one coaching, so I can dedicate enough time to be able to focus on exactly what you need to do. So if you're interested in that, obviously you can click the Enroll Now button for that one or any of the other options at paulwoods.ai/business writing. So with that, let's move on to kind of close out the webinar today. Some final thoughts to leave you with before we wrap up. I think the key thing here is that generative AI and AI in the office or in the workplace sometimes can feel like a revolution. Like, it feels like it's this hype train that you need to get on, and if you don't get on it, you're going to miss the boat, and you're always going to be behind other people. I think the key thing here is, don't think of this as a revolution. It's just an accelerated evolution of the way that we do things. Like, we've been using technology for a long time to improve the way that we write, to improve the way that we work. We've had spell checkers before, we've had grammar checkers before. This is just the next step of that evolution. The key thing here is not to be afraid of it and not to kind of just jump out of the car and let AI take control. You're in the driver's seat. You're the one that's going to be, you're the one that's going to have your name on the content that's produced. So you need to really make sure you are in the driver's seat and make sure you get the great outcomes that you want to get, and work with AI to get those outcomes for you. Work with it, not just outsource it to AI. And if you're ready to level up and really take this to the next step, let's work together. We are very early in the generative AI wave. Again, it may feel like you're behind the 8 ball. You're not. It's still very early days. We have a lot of time to build up your confidence, build up your capability to really leverage these tools as they grow and improve. There's so much innovation that's in the AI tools that we have at our fingertips today that not very many people are using. You have a great opportunity to get on the ground floor and really maximize the impact of how you use those tools to get great outcomes for your people, for your organization, and for yourself and your career as well. So with that, thank you very much for joining today. Again, if you joined live, I appreciate you watching all the way to the end. If you want to catch the replay, it will be on my YouTube channel. So YouTube/Paul Woods AI. Just look for the Paul Woods AI YouTube channel. or go to paulwoods.ai and you'll find it there as well. Thank you very much for joining. I hope you have a great rest of your day. If you have any questions, down in the comments or hit me up on email. I'm happy to answer anything that you might have from today's session. With that, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Catch you later. Bye.